he's yelling at Jenna to do all of these different things. And I'm laughing, going, I don't understand why he's yelling at her. But all of that to teach her what to do off the ball.
Hello, and welcome to the Kick It with Katie podcast. Hey team, it's Katie here, and today I have soccer mom Teri Tivnin. And Teri, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, let us know where you're from and your kid that you have playing soccer.
Awesome. So I'm Teri Tivnin. So awesome to be here. I'm from Boston, little suburb outside of Boston. I myself played softball and soccer as a youth, and going forward a little bit into kind of the semi-pro world. And I have a 24-year-old daughter that started out in youth soccer and then played ACC level soccer, and then is now a professional soccer player in Portugal. So plays for the top division there. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for your own soccer experience, how old were you when you started playing?
So, well, I started playing when I was 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Back in my age group, there really wasn't girls soccer. We didn't have a girls soccer team in high school. So I played with the boys pretty much my whole career. When I was in eighth grade, my brother happened to be the captain of the high school soccer team, and I really wanted to play on the high school soccer team. I was the only girl playing.
Mm-hmm.
And he made me play in this indoor soccer league, and I ended up breaking my leg really bad, where I broke both the bones in my leg. It was in a cast for a very long time, and that was pretty much the end of my soccer career.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that injuries like that in any sport are
Yeah.
definitely very scary and usually pretty traumatic, especially if it's you're doing something that you love and then
Ugh.
you can't do it anymore.
Oh, absolutely. And this is back in the 80s. So back in the 80s, they didn't really prepare you for sports the way they do now.
Hmm.
So even the operations and all the things, when I think about, I tore my ACL playing softball, and I think about the operations back then to what it is now. It's
Right.
crazy. I was in the hospital for a week. People are in
Yeah.
and out now.
Yeah, I tore my ACL. It's been almost 20, well, not 20 years. It's
Yeah.
been almost 15 years, and I still haven't had it operated on. And so when people find out, they're like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, "Well, I can't play soccer technically. I've tried, but I mean, it's obviously not very stable, but when I eventually do have the surgery, like sometimes I'm like, I'm kind of glad I've waited because now it's less invasive than what
Yes.
it was previously. I mean, even if I had had it done when I did it, it was obviously still less invasive than before, but now it's even, just what they've been able to do and the recovery for it and everything. It's quite interesting. For your daughter that played, how old was she when she was introduced to soccer?
So it's funny because we always say Jenna was born to play some sport. She had a ball in her hand and at her feet from the time she was a baby. She would
Mm-hmm.
literally, at 9 months old, sit on my kitchen floor and dribble a basketball. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just what she did. So she started in my town. We have this amazing director of coaching, John Barada. He is just fantastic. It was the first year he came to Easton, and he started this pre-K program, and we played soccer behind a church down
Mm-hmm.
the street. She was 5 years old, and she hasn't stopped playing since.
That's awesome. And did she, after that, did she like do rec or did she go straight into club or how was that progression for her with the system?
Yeah, so she played rec and travel, and she was not introduced to club soccer until she was 9 years old. And our director of coaching actually did that. At the time, that was young still.
Mm-hmm.
She's 24 now. So if you think about back then, it was still early. And he told us, she was running over people. She was to a point playing rec where anytime she scored a goal with her right foot, it didn't count. She could only score a goal with her left foot for it to count. He put her on a travel team when she was 7, and you weren't supposed to. You were only
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be there at 8. He almost got fired for it. He had I had parents coming up to her at um, travel practice, going, "How old are you?" And then they would in turn go to him and be like, "How did you took a space away from somebody else's daughter to give it to her?" So he knew when she was quite young that she was special.
Yeah, and it's very tricky, coming from like a coach's perspective myself, when you have players that do need to be pushed and they do need to play up a level, whether it's up
Yeah.
an age group or whatever that looks like for whatever you're in right now, and having comments like that where parents get upset because
Oh, you have
you're
no
taking
idea.
away space. And so it's really hard because there's so many perspectives that you have to think about. And what is, I mean, our biggest thing as coaches is we have to do what's best for every kid. And so if this player who's younger is just as good as or better than somebody that is maybe the proper age group, it's not fair to give that person in the age group that spot when this player is obviously better, depending on what the team situation is or dynamic. And so it's really hard for people to grasp that because they obviously want what's best for their kid. But as far as what coaches are supposed to do, we have to do what's best for each individual player and wherever that fits in for them. I know I'm a big person who likes to have players cross train and cross play. I coach 3 different age groups, and I have multiple players in age groups that will cross train either up or down. And then the players that can play, in those respective age groups, they can play up a year. And so if they need that extra push, then that's where they're at. And so it's hard for some people to understand that because it's very much it helps out those kids. And some parents, hard truth moment, a lot of parents don't like to hear that their kid doesn't have that same talent as other kids, and unfortunately that's the way it is. Some people are better at math. it's
Yeah,
it's
right.
it's just how it is. It just happens to be that this kid is better at basketball, this kid is better at soccer. Like it's just how it is. And so those players need to be pushed at a level that's going to continually help them develop. Yes, your daughter maybe took a spot away from somebody else, but did she deserve it? It sounds like she did. She's currently playing professionally. So
Right. Right.
obviously the coach made the right decision.
We were very lucky throughout her entire youth career, even college and beyond, right? We were really lucky to have the mentors that we had in her life,
Mm-hmm.
starting from John here in East End. And John actually is still a big mentor for her, helped her with her agent to get her. I mean, she's playing against, her team is currently third in the Liga BPI, um, only to Sporting and Benfica. So, like, if it wasn't for the people that she had in her life, so from John to NEFC, so she played for the New England Football Club out here in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were not club jumpers, we were not anything. Somebody actually saw her when she was 9 years old at a soccer camp and was like, "You need to come play." They put her on the D team of her age group. So
Mm-hmm.
the D team, because
Mm-hmm.
at the time we needed a scholarship, and they were like, "All right, we'll put you on this team." Halfway through the year, we beat the A team, and halfway through the year, she was then put on the B team, which was better for her. And I say better for her because the coach that she had, Nick Burke, who is, again, another mentor that's still in her life, when she comes home, she does private training with him.
Mm-hmm.
He just worked with her and he would literally teach her how to head the ball. She's great in the air, which is one of the biggest reasons why she's where she's at. She's amazing in the air, one of the best in the air that you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he taught her that. He pushed her. He never stopped her from growing. So when it was time for her to go onto the A team at that U13 age where everyone kind of comes together,
Mm-hmm.
she played U13 elite and she played U14 to get her more touches on the ball, all because they helped her. They
Mm-hmm.
pushed her. I mean, I remember being at a game and she played striker up until she was 11. So from 9 to 11 she played striker, scored 5 goals a game. She's a big girl too, which I say all the time. There's a lot of things that you can teach, but you can't teach size. So she's like
Right.
5'9", 5'10". She's a big presence back there, and he wanted to put her on center back. So we talked to my husband first because I did not want her to go to center back. I wanted her to stay as a striker, but what did I know, right? I
Mm-hmm.
said, I'm going to trust whatever, if that's what you feel like. So we put her at center back. And at the time, I think it was 8v8 that we played at U11. And I remember her being at center back and the play is on the other end. So she's pushing up a little bit and the coach is screaming at her. Like, no, he doesn't even care what's going on in the play. He's yelling at Jenna to do all of these different things. And I'm laughing, going, I don't understand why he's yelling at her. But all of that to teach her what to do off the ball, which is something
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
They just, they were great. I mean, her team went on to win the Youth National Championship at U14. They were the first Massachusetts team, and I think still to this day, the only Massachusetts team that's ever won it. That was 2014. They won the Youth National Championship and the Club Soccer National Championship in the same year. And they were in the NPL. So for those people, obviously, that know the club soccer world, NPL is not even really anything anymore. At the
Mm-hmm.
time, it was NPL and then ECNL. Now it's NPL, GA, ECNL, and it's just down low of the low totem pole. And we won all of these awards. It was just a whirlwind. These girls were getting recruited out of 8th grade. It was crazy.
Yeah. And how was that for her being able to be starting to be recruited and looked at such a younger age? I know that the rules changed, so
Yes,
obviously they can't do that anymore. But how
right.
was that having them looking at her at such a young age?
It was very stressful, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure it was obviously stressful for her more so than it was for me. I will tell you as a parent, I did not realize everything that goes into being recruited, right? Like you think that a coach comes, they see you play, and they offer you a scholarship. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I thought. I don't know. We didn't have girls' teams like that when I was growing up. You know, it just happened after me.
Right.
So it was for them to tell us that, well, you have to write emails, you have to give me your schedule, you have to follow up, you have to set, they would have to set times that they were going to call because
Mm-hmm.
if you call and they don't pick up, they can't call you back. And then I just remember when she was talking, so she went to Syracuse and played there for all 5 years because they got the extra COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember when the head coach called her, and so she wanted me to be there, so I was there sitting next to her, and all I could hear was, "Well, yeah, like," and I'm going to myself, "Oh my God, she's 14 years old, and she's talking to this ACC Power Five coach, going and like," you know.
Right.
So that was just, I mean, that was the funny part of the fact that they're immature at 14. They're
Mm-hmm.
not even in high school yet.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. We had at the time a great coach who, after we won the youth national championship and the soccer national championship, we had a lot of interest. I mean, out of Jenna's team, we had 2 girls go to Duke. We had Jenna go to Syracuse. We had, I mean, most of the team went to Division One. I think those were the only 3 that went to the Power Five, but um, most of the team went Division One. So it was he managed that in the sense of he had the girls write down, give me 10 colleges that you want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't care why. He just give me 10 colleges. And then he would meet with the girls and he would talk about each of the colleges and tell them whether he thought that was a good fit for them. And they'd go back and forth and they'd whittle it down. And we had, by the end of, or beginning even of freshman year, they had five solid schools that they wanted to try and go to. Every tournament we went to, we visited colleges. Like, we just did whatever we could. And I had another daughter who didn't play sports, that was doing the college search at the same time. So she was a senior in high school. Jenna's a freshman in high school, and they're both going on college tours,
Mm-hmm.
very different college tours. When you are a recruited athlete, you get a private tour of your school and you
Mm-hmm.
get to sit in all these offices and you're by yourself. And so it was that versus going in this huge herd of people,
Right.
right?
The group
But
setting.
I think about it now, and it was very stressful, but I'm glad that we did it really young. I mean, she committed when she was a freshman in high school, and she spent all 5 years at Syracuse, never transferred, even after they lost their head coach her freshman year. Um, she had a new head coach that came in and was like, listen, we want you here and we'll do whatever we can to keep you here. And so she spent the rest of the 4 years with her. And their last year at Syracuse had their best year ever. So it was really fun.
That's awesome.
I miss
And
it.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people like one of my husband's teams, their kids just graduated the last year. I don't know, it's been a couple years maybe. And a lot of those parents still get together and hang out because they're like, we miss it because, we used to spend every weekend together or all this time together, all the travel together. We all
Yeah.
became such good friends. And so some of them still, meet up and hang out and things like that because you miss that
Yeah. We do that with
camaraderie.
our, we do that with, so the club soccer team, like I said, she never changed clubs, and there was the core group of them that stayed together until they changed. When they went to birth year, Jenna was
Mm-hmm.
a 99. There was only four of them on the team that were 99. The rest of them were 2000. So they had to split up because at the time we were playing ECNL.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't, like, they didn't want to keep one team, and they wouldn't let the, like, the young team be in the same age bracket as the older team. They didn't want that.
Hmm.
So I know, instead of keeping our team together and letting us play up a year, they didn't want
Interesting.
to do that. I know it was.
Interesting.
We lost a lot of players because the other thing with the ECNL is they wouldn't let you play high school soccer. You had to have a waiver.
Right.
So only a few of them got waivers, and the rest of the team that didn't get waivers and they wanted to play high school, they left and went someplace else.
Hmm.
It was a hard year, that junior year of high school, and it was a really, really hard year. But then we all came back together again our senior year,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember thinking to myself, this is our last year. And
Yeah.
every tournament we went to, every game that we went to, I just wanted to savor it because it was just, youth soccer was so much fun. It was
Mm-hmm.
just so much fun. Like, even when parents were obnoxious, which, let me tell you, I don't know where you're from, but the parents in New York are a little bit crazy. Just
I
saying.
think
And
there. I
I
think
know.
it's everywhere. I'm pretty
Listen,
sure it's just everywhere.
I know, I'm not saying that our group wasn't a little crazy, but we had, I can't remember who it was against, Quick Strike. They went around before the game started and they handed out lollipops to all of our parents so that we'd be sucking on the lollipops instead of opening our mouths. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've heard. There was a um somebody that I had on as a guest previously that he's been a coach, and when he coached youth soccer, he would hand out lollipops to some of the parents to
Yep.
try and keep them, busy because he knew that they were going to be, running their mouths on the sideline or whatever. So I was like, oh, I'll have to keep that in mind if I ever encounter that. I haven't
Oh
had
yeah.
any issues for a few years, so.
Yeah, it's lovely. Well, here in New England, we tend to not keep our mouths shut either. So it's
And I really think it just depends. It also, I don't want to say it depends on the age or the level of play, um, because I mean, I've seen some older teams. We went to a tournament over Thanksgiving, and we were there at a college showcase, and none of my kids were playing, but my husband was coaching, and our sideline was pretty chill for the most part. Like, we, clap and things like that. But I felt like as a group, like they were pretty chill at that point because, their youth careers are starting to wind down a little bit. So I felt like some of the tempers had mellowed over the years. Obviously,
It's
if it's
not
an
as
intense,
bad that, but
yeah, I mean, obviously, as like certain games are
13,
really
14 year
intense.
olds. Yeah,
Well,
I think that's the group. That's the age group that's bad. 13, 14, maybe 15.
I think it also depends on what they're yelling about because I witnessed a 2015 team out of state where I'm pretty sure every single parent on the sideline of that team was coaching their kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I was warming up my 2014 team that had gone down there to play in the tournament, and there were some 2015 teams that were in a division lower than ours that were playing up because they didn't have enough for their own division, so they were playing with some 2014 teams, and I'm assuming it was the 2015 team. I mean, the 2014 team they were playing, some of the parents were, rowdy and stuff because the other team's parents were. But I'm pretty sure that almost every parent that was on the sideline of that 2015 team was all yelling. And I was like, I really hope that coach is just sitting down because it doesn't matter what he says. They're not going to
Right.
listen to him and they're just going to listen to their mom or dad that's yelling at them. Like it
I
was utter
know
chaos.
it is. And you know what? I think that, you know, when Jenna was younger, I think I got really wrapped up in it, right? I got wrapped up in, I'm like, oh my God, maybe she can go play Division 1 soccer. Like that, you get like this, I don't know, excitement about what could be.
The
And I think,
possibilities.
yeah, as the
Hmm.
years kind of went on, and I think I started reading more articles about some of the things to say and do with your kids after their games, and I made some pretty bad mistakes. I'll never forget one time I yelled at her about how she played, and she was like, she cried, and I was like, oh my God, how could I do that? And from
Hmm.
honestly, from there on in, barring a few little mishaps, I think the one thing that I say, and I still do it to this day, so before every single game, I send her inspirational quotes, and my message is just whatever. Like last week's message I think was about being fierce, and but every single week I say the same thing: I can't wait to watch you play. Love
Hmm.
watching you play, because I think that that is so important, and I've learned from being that crazy parent, to now. I mean, obviously she's a big girl now, so she's not as affected, but I think I was really affected by that.
Hmm.
I was truly affected by how I affected her.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it's hard for parents. I mean, I'm a parent of 5 players myself, and I coach
Oh,
3 of them. My husband coaches our sons. So it's really hard. I mean, I don't want to say it's really hard just because we've done it like ever since they've played, basically, where one of us has been in the coaching position for our kids. And so we can distinguish very easily from coach and parent. My youngest, they're twins that are 8, and I've only been coaching them for about 8 months. I don't know, since last summer. And well, almost a year, I guess. And they're the ones that have the hardest time distinguishing between coach mom, coach Katie, and mom. Like,
right.
well, you're our mom, and I'm like, but right now I'm your coach. So, our other kids get it. Like at this point in this time, like you're not dad, you're coach, and it's pretty easy to distinguish that for them. But for our youngest, it's really hard. But as far as like giving feedback to our kids as also being their coaches, like I don't know how my husband does it with the boys. He's very good with them. One of them's a keeper, the other one's he's basically a sub on his team, and he's going through some knee pain and injury right now. I don't want to say injury. We think he has Osgood-Schlatter, however you
Oh
say that.
yeah. Yep.
So like, it's just been very painful for him for the last, I don't know, it's been a few months that he's been dealing with it that we've noticed. But anyway, he's very good with talking to them and talking them through their games and for as far as like the girls go, for me, I'm very much, I try and let them lead. And if they have a question, Mom, do you think I played good today? And, I'll give them feedback, and, we'll talk about like, well, what do you think you can work on? Like my oldest daughter right now, she's 11, almost 12. No, she's 10, almost 11. Anyway, I'm like, I can't remember. But she started doing this thing where, for whatever reason, in the last year, she started using the outside of her foot a lot. And so like the balls aren't going where she wants them to. And I'm trying not to like be super critical of her because I'm her mom.
Right.
But I also am like, what part of foot you're supposed to be using at certain times. And so if you want that to change, you have to start using the proper part of your foot. And we have a discussion about that. But so that, I mean, it's very much a hard line of, what is okay to talk to my kid about in the car ride home. Because, I mean, I remember one of the players that I coached, another player asked her if she could go hang out after the game or something. And her response was, well, it depends on how well I do in the game. And she was like 8 at the time. An 8-year-old.
Listen, I will tell you a story. Like, we had somebody who said after Jenna scored her 5th goal, they turned around to my husband and said, can she get a ride home now?
Oh, man.
Like, I don't know what she's telling people. We don't, like, we used to do fun things with her, like, oh, you get 2 header
Yeah.
goals and we'll buy you a lobster, like
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah,
I
but
am that
I
mom.
mean, as an 8-year-old, I felt really bad. Like, I was just like, that's a
Yes,
lot of pressure to put on a kid in a game that she's still learning. Like, it's
right,
not the World Cup. Like, even then, like, can I go hang out with my friends after a World
right.
Cup game? Like, what?
I
I
know,
don't know.
right?
It was just, it was really sad to hear when I heard that. And,
Yeah, that's a
um,
consequence that I don't know that I would give. I
yeah.
just
And
don't.
so, yeah. So I just felt, I mean, just the fact that she didn't even have to ask her parents, that she just had that response. Well, I don't know. Because it's like, if you don't play well, are you grounded for the day?
I,
Like, that's awful. Like, what kind
I
of
don't know.
mental space
Right.
is this girl going to be
Yeah.
in because she's
Can
being
you imagine?
threatened by her parents as an 8-year-old, that if you don't have an amazing game, and I don't, was she supposed to score so many goals? Like, there's so many variables in games that it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in a game. Like, how do you constitute whether or not your kid played well? Like, are you,
And us
I,
as parents don't really know. Like, we can say, oh, it was a shutout, so the keeper and the defense did great, right? Or
mhm.
we won by 5 goals, so we had great offense. So whoever was, on the offense. But as a coach, you guys know, and like as a mom to say you played like crap, so you can't go out today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've even had this was I can't remember what team this was, but there was a team that um, I was watching the game, and it's not any of my kids, but my husband was coaching, and I was there. I don't know if we were at a tournament or what, and our team was winning handily. Like, we were scoring goals and stuff, but honestly, they were playing awful, and my husband was, trying to get them to like play well. Like, yes, we were winning, but it was kind of an ugly win.
Right.
And some of the parents were like, "Why is he so upset? We're winning." And it's like, well, can't you tell that all
It's
we're not? It's
called the
not
beautiful game for a reason. We only play
exactly. And
kickball, and yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it was really kind of funny because people were like, "Well, you guys are winning. Why is your coach going crazy?" I'm sure that's what other people that were watching, and it's
Right.
like, we're not playing the type of soccer that they have been taught to play. And so it was, I don't know, I can't remember what game or tournament it was in, but it was just like, sometimes there are, sometimes you lose, but you played
Like
awesome.
great.
And
Right.
so I mean, it's really hard to say just because you win or lose doesn't mean that. You see it all the time where teams that are playing, like, I just watched I think it was an EPL game over the weekend where the team was absolutely crushing it. They had the ball in their half of the field trying to score basically 90% of the
Right.
time, and they ended up tying. But
Right,
they,
because they had a counter because they had 7 people. The team had 7 people back and one cherry picking.
yeah.
It
So
happens all the time.
yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's like, well, the other team, they scored their goal or whatever happened. I mean, it was ugly, whatever happened, but it was just like, was that really good soccer? Yes, it's a strategy to win or tie, because,
Hmm.
that team needed to at least tie to stay in the position that they were in. But it was, I guess, they pulled off their strategy, but
Right. In the world
was
of
it
youth
entertaining?
soccer, yeah, no.
No.
And in the world of youth soccer, playing direct, people like shun playing direct. It's not any time, and I'll tell you, like, if you ever watch Syracuse play, in the last 5 years, we played very direct, and we played direct because we had, like, Jenna has a great leg and could pass a ball on a dime, has great long ball. So they're able to do that.
Hmm.
Does everybody like and appreciate a direct game of soccer? No, nobody does. And I'll tell you, even when you win and you play like that, you get the same thing with Lucky, and you guys just
Hmm.
kick the ball out the whole time. And yeah, it's not pretty for anyone. It's not fun
Yeah.
for anyone.
I mean, there are times where direct does
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
like
Well,
you said, it does work, but is it playing the beautiful game? No,
no.
but it is a way for you to win,
I
and
mean, look
so
at
especially,
NWSL. They
I mean,
have
at the younger
Houston.
ages, where they're trying to develop skill, playing
Right.
direct does not develop skill.
No,
And so
not at all.
that's one of the biggest things where, I mean, I remember being a youth player and it was basically I had a decent kick and I played, center back or stopper, sweeper, whatever it was called, outside backs and things like that. And so if the ball ever came to me, one of the things that I would do when I was younger was just boot it up the
Right,
field,
right.
up to the
You
forwards.
have parents yelling, "Kick it out, kick it out!" No,
Mm-hmm.
you got to pass to the middle, and you got to trust your teammates. So
Yeah.
I,
Well, and one of the other things that I had to explain to one of my teams recently is I said, when I was a kid, you would always hear, keep it out of the middle, stay away from the middle, because you didn't want to play up the middle. And that was a
right,
very much an old school mentality. And so I had to, talk to the players. I'm like, we want to distribute from the middle. Like,
right,
so it goes outside, it goes inside, it goes back out, or it
right.
goes back up the middle more. Like, so you have to figure out where the ball needs to go. And, I talked to them about how I'm not a controlling coach as far as like, because we play teams where you can tell that they have passing patterns that they are supposed to follow.
Right.
And I said,
Yep.
the reason why I don't teach specific passing patterns, I teach you how to pass the ball and how to move. I said, is because what if that passing lane isn't open? What are
Right.
you going to do if it's not there? I said, you're going to freeze and you're going to freak out and you're going to turn over the ball. I said, I give you the creativity and the opportunity to think for yourself and learn how to play soccer.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I said, when we play these teams and they do these specific things, I said, we cut them off and we force those turnovers because we cut off those passing lanes with our
They're
pressure and things like
predictable.
that. And we disrupt them. And so, but people can't really do that to us because they don't know what we're going to do because
Right.
I don't make you. I
Yeah.
said on the kickoff, I tell you where I want the ball to go.
Right.
And on goal kicks, I give you the first pass. I said after that first pass from keeper to center back, I said it's totally up to the center back where the ball goes. I said I tell you the options that you have, but you have multiple options of where to go with the ball. I'm not telling you specifically this is where it has to go every time. These are your options. Whether you keep going to the same place or not is up to your
Right.
decision, but these are your options. And so that's one of the things that I think people don't understand with some of the coaching that goes on with people like me, where I'm trying to give your child the creativity to learn on
Right.
their own in a way. I'm giving them the tools to do it, where they see these other teams who, they pass from here to there to there to there to there, but as soon as we intercept it or we cut that off, they choke. So is
Right.
that
And I'm
really
going to
helping
tell
them?
you what you're doing is teaching your players to have like really great soccer IQ,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when they get to the age of college recruiting, that is something that every college coach looks for. They
Mm-hmm.
want smart players. They
Mm-hmm.
want players that, can think on the dime and they don't need to be told what to do all the time because that's not how it works in college,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have set plays for free kicks and corners, and that's about it.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
important that you teach them that.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's one of the big things, like with some of the players that I have seen their teams in my area do great things, but it's because they're so heavily coached, and some people call it joysticking.
Yeah,
They're robots, and so they lack that creativity as a player. Yes, they can do the things, but they have to be told to do them.
right.
And so they're not thinking for themselves. And so I feel like some of those players that could have had that opportunity aren't getting those opportunities because, maybe they were joysticked. And I know I've had people that I've discussed with, sorry, everybody listening, there's an ambulance or
Yeah.
something going down the street. Anyway, so back
Yes.
to the conversation. But
Back to
just
soccer.
yeah, just having those coaches that are able to give the kids the creativity to do that. And it sounds like your daughter had that opportunity and was developed really well.
She was developed you know, like I said, I'm very thankful for the mentors, the coaches that she's had in her life. They have all been just amazing. There was a point when I think she was about 10 years old, and they had this indoor soccer tournament at Boston College. And so she was on like not the A team, she was on the next team down at age
Hmm.
10, like, really, whatever.
Right.
So they were playing in this tournament, and she had this, I wasn't there, my husband told me, she had this like unbelievable header. And at that point, the coach from the A team was like, why isn't she on my team?
Hmm.
Why isn't this girl on my team? So from the age of 10 until 13, we stayed on the B team, even though he wanted us to be on the A team. And the reason why we did that has nothing to do against the coach that was from the A team, but on the B team and on this particular team with who is now Nick Burke, who's now the director of coaching for NEFC, he was just so good with Jenna and so good with the kids. You'd go to practice and he'd be in the middle of the field playing with them. Like it
Hmm.
was just, you could tell that they were having fun. And when you looked at the practice for the A team, it looked like nobody was having fun. So we
Hmm.
never wanted to have her love of the game squelched. And I'm not saying that any of those girls that were playing on that A team, their love got squelched because I don't know that it did or it didn't. I know that most of them don't play anymore. So,
Hmm.
but for her, we were just like, she loves playing for this guy, and he was so awesome to her. And she still played. So she played travel for the town.
Hmm.
She did not play middle school because they would not let her play middle school and play club. The guy at the middle school said, well, is in, my daughter plays club soccer too. And she still has to come to practice. I said, well, I guess we're not trying out then. So
Hmm.
not going to happen. Um, but even those coaches, like everyone just, it wasn't just Jenna that they did well with. I just felt like every single place we went, we had great coaches. We had
Hmm.
great people that really helped us. And because I don't know the world of club soccer. I am an older mom, right? We didn't have any of this.
Hmm.
Um, for us, the biggest thing we could do, I played travel soccer. Travel softball. We didn't even have AAU softball back then. It just wasn't a
Hmm.
thing. So this was all new for me. And they not only helped me and my husband kind of navigate this world of club soccer, but they helped Jenna become the player that she is. And
Hmm.
and Jenna did too. I honestly think when you think about your kid or whose ever kid is in soccer, you can tell where they're going to go. And for a few reasons. I think that we never pushed Jenna to go to practice. Like if we always said if there was a day that she said to us, "Ugh, I don't want to go to practice," that would be it. You don't want to go to practice, and you don't want to play. She never once. We never packed her bag for her. Like she literally would be down waiting for us. Hurry up, we're gonna be late. And God forbid we were even a minute like. And I'm talking late is not being there an hour before practice starts, right?
Right.
So I think that there's that inner drive
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know that that's a teachable thing.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's just something that they have inside of them. So there was that. There was I just like I said before, you can't teach size. Jenna was always the biggest one on any team she was on.
Mm-hmm.
She's a big girl. Um, and then the other thing about her is that you could tell how motivated she was in everything, because the girl just her friend's mother introduced her to the private school world, and she gave her a book of 500 private schools in all of the United States. Jenna went through it in a weekend, doggy eared all the schools that she was going to apply to. She applied to all of them. She set up all of the interviews. Like she did all of it herself
Mm-hmm.
and ended up going to boarding school for high school.
Hmm.
All on her.
So very
Like
self-motivated.
very, very self motivated. And I don't know that you can teach that. I
I
just
don't
don't.
think you can. You definitely can't. Like I mean, I've seen players who love to play soccer, but they don't have a certain drive. And so it's obviously not something that parents can force on you to be motivated.
Right.
I mean, I was a very self motivated person as far as like doing all my own schoolwork and getting all my own things done. You know, I had a part time job. You know,
Right.
I did all these other things: dance, cheer, soccer. I was a very, very busy person and I always went and did everything. Like it got to
Yeah.
be super
Yeah.
overwhelming, but that was the kind of environment that I thrived in. I'm
Right.
not, you know, sometimes I'll just sit for a day and just be like, I just want to be in bed. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, thinking about all the things that I need to accomplish and do or whatever.
You're
And
like,
I'm like,
nope, I can't. You can't relax. So no matter what, I remember the one time that Jenna got upset that she couldn't do something, and there really was only one time, because I remember when we put her into club soccer, we said to her, "Listen, this is a commitment. This is not like there's a birthday party and you can miss soccer. It's
mm-hmm.
soccer. The birthday party comes second. Everything else." She missed my brother's wedding because
Oh,
she was
wow.
at a soccer tournament in New York. But it was against like it was Top Hat, it was PDA, like all the big clubs,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a college showcase. So like she never complained except for one time when all of her friends were going to a birthday party at the Revs game,
Oh,
and we she couldn't go because she had soccer, and she like I remember her crying for like up in a room for like a half an hour, and I was like, listen, I go, I understand that you're upset, and that's the commitment that you made, but that was the last time that she ever cried about it, because I think at the next point too, your soccer friends, the people that you play with day in and day out, they become your best friends, they become the people that you do things with, and
mm-hmm.
that's just kind of what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it does take a large amount of sacrifice, especially to
Yeah.
play at the higher levels as well. And I think, you know, little things like that can be a good learning experience for
Yeah.
players to go, is this worth it? Do I want to have to sacrifice so much to be a college athlete? Because there is that amount of I, in order for me to be on this team in college, there's so many things and requirements that I have to meet. And what am I going to miss out on? And so, is your FOMO going to overrun you? And maybe that's not what you want to do. And so, that's also things that people need to realize when they're thinking about those things. And your social life is going to be a lot different as any sort of athlete, especially, now that she's playing professionally in another country.
Yeah.
She's missing out on a lot of things that might be happening at home because she's
Yeah.
also living in a foreign country currently.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We got a kitten. So here are the bad soccer moms that we are. We're like, here I am going, Jenna, if you get like 3 goals, I will get a kitten, okay? Because my husband saw this kitten and we were all like, all the kids were like, let's get it, let's get it. Now my youngest is 17. So when I say kids, that's 17 and 20-year olds.
Mm-hmm.
So does she not call me up because the game wasn't televised and she got a hat trick? I'm not kidding you. I'm like, wait, didn't I say 5 goals? She goes, no, mom, I will forward you the text. I'm gonna go get the kitten because the girl got a hat trick, right? Like, so that's like the soccer mom. But anyway, so she's never met the cat before. So
Mm-hmm.
we FaceTime so she gets to see, the kitten and our old cat. But I think, Jenna's been out of our house since she was 13. She went to boarding school. It wasn't that far. It was in Newburyport, Massachusetts, so on like the New Hampshire border.
Mm-hmm.
But her being away, she's been away her whole life. But I think being in another country is like you can't just drive home. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
just like miss your mom, right? You can't
Right.
just drive home. I think that's kind of where it's at. I want her to come home too. I would love for her to play in the NWSL. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that once we get a Boston team, I think that's her goal. But for right now, she'll come home for June and then have to go back to wherever she signs for next year. But I was going to tell you, so Sacrifice, she went to boarding school. It's about 2 hours from here.
Mm-hmm.
So freshman and sophomore year, she didn't have a car because she wasn't old enough to drive, right?
Right.
So we would literally drive up to her school every single day, pick her up, drive her to practice, which was here near us, drive
Mm-hmm.
her back to school. And me and my husband, depending on who did it one day, because we both worked, so, we'd switch off. We wouldn't get home until like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So her junior year, like nobody's allowed to have cars on campus. But we told them that she wouldn't be able to go there if she wasn't allowed to have a car on campus because you can't
Right.
keep that up. So
Right.
like, oh, we just so much driving, and they approved it. So she was able to get her driver's license before her junior year and be able to drive herself. But even driving herself, like she still went to classes all day. Had to, I mean, it's a pretty prestigious school, so you have to be smart and you have to study a lot. Had
Right.
to study, get to practice. She'd get back by 11 or midnight and still have to do more work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot. I actually think high school for her was a lot more than what college was. Um, so I think it really prepared her. She got a 4.0 every semester, and I think that's really, really difficult as a student athlete, especially when you're in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that, like, it is literally get up at 5:30 in the morning. You have practice from 6 to 8, or you got to get there early because you got activation and you've got they got to work on you before you go out, well, for whatever injury that you've got. Then you go practice, and then you got recovery for another hour, and you sit in an ice bath, and then you got to go to, school all day, and then you got to go back and do film, and it is like every day constant. And you have to have that mindset, and you have to know that that's what your school is. 4 years of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
it's crazy.
it's very, for some people, I feel like it's shocking. Other people, like your daughter, who have been preparing for it,
Right.
they know what's coming. And I know that a lot of times people drop out of college because they weren't prepared for what it was going to be like and how
Yeah.
self reliant you have to be, because nobody's going to be making sure that you're turning in your assignments or whatever. They're going, you're an adult, and so you have to be on
And
your own.
no.
Like, and sometimes you're out of state and your parents aren't there to be like, hey, did you do your homework? That type of a thing. So it's also, you have to be very self sufficient and self reliant. I mean, and that's part of just growing up and being an adult is you have to be that as you get older. You have to start turning to yourself more and relying on yourself and your decision making skills and things like that. So it's very very good for players to hear that you should be preparing yourselves for these types of situations early so that it's not so much of a shock. And some people, they say the transition from one to another isn't that bad, and maybe it's just because you had a situation where you were prepared for that, and
Right.
that's good that transition can be easier for you. But for some people, it's really hard. I know a few student athletes that I know that were older than me that, they went and played college soccer somewhere for a year or half a year or whatever it was. And they just either the school wasn't right for them or they didn't like being away or whatever it was. And they ended up coming home. And
I think the
so,
return on investment too, like if you're, because we had a few girls that went and played for a year and they were like, nah, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not
mhm,
going to go pro. I'm not, this just, I just want to have fun, right?
yeah.
So I think that that's a lot of things that people don't understand when they go there. Like, I don't know what Division two and Division three are like, but in the world of Division one sports, it is a 100% commitment.
Hmm.
Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, and so people need to make sure that they're prepared for that because you see in movies and television or whatever this great college experience, and it's like, but for athletes, it's not that, you
Right,
know,
right.
um, and
It's
so
different.
yeah, and so a lot of people don't understand the sacrifice that it takes to even just be a college athlete.
Hmm.
So for your daughter, you said that you guys got her in touch with an agent. So when did that
Yes.
come about? Was she still in college when you guys got in touch with him?
So we had an agent. It was right after the season, because she was declaring for the draft. So
Mm-hmm.
right after the season ended, we got an agent. She declared for the draft. She didn't get drafted. We weren't really happy with the agent that we had. So I had reached out to our director of coaching, and he's like, no, 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 I've got somebody. And Jenna is his only client, his only girl client. He
Mm-hmm.
has a huge following for men, but he's been wonderful. Really great about, like, they talk all the time. I wish I was more involved, but she's 24 and she's a big girl, and I hear bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think that I was really nervous about where I was going to find an agent and how. And I don't know why, because I've got so many connections here, but like I said, the first agent didn't work out, but this guy's great.
That's good that she's been able to find somebody that is able to help her, especially like you said, he has like a full roster of, it sounds like, male
All
athletes. And
men.
so for
Yep.
her to be his only female athlete, that's great. Hopefully a trend setting experience for him as especially as the women's soccer game is starting to expand a lot.
Yeah.
Because I know, like I've talked to a few players who they've gotten in touch with agents and things, and as far as like soccer agents go, like for me, I'm like, how, like, is it really that common for people to have agents in the United States? Like, obviously
Yes.
abroad, it's like a thing. And so that's one of the, I would feel like, an emerging market for people. They're interested in some sort of job or whatever. Like, I feel like that's an emerging market that could be a big thing. Like, and I have literally no idea how many soccer agents there are in the United
I
States. I mean, I've seen Jerry Maguire, the
right.
sports agents and things for those other big sports, but now that soccer's kind of starting to take off in the United States and over the last several years, and it's becoming more of a thing, like I don't have any kids that need to have agents or anything like that, but for those players that are coming of those ages where maybe they need to look into that. Like who are people that they can look to for that experience. So,
And you want to make sure that, like, I know it's just like every other business, it's who they know,
hmm,
right? Because that's how you get you're in contact with people. So,
right.
I think one of the things that is great is that Jenna is his only woman client, right? But
Hmm,
on the other side, he knows a lot of guy coaches.
hmm,
So he's learning the women's market too, which I think is fabulous for him. And again, he's just absolutely phenomenal. So I couldn't be happier. But I think that that's the other thing that you need to look at is, who are the athletes that they have signed,
hmm,
right? Who are the ones that they've put in? Because the other thing is, I will tell you, there are a bunch of agents that will put people in like Lithuania,
hmm.
and we're like, no,
Yeah.
like, she's good enough to play in a good league,
Hmm,
um, and so that's one of the things that this agent did. He was like, are you okay playing?
hmm.
So, yeah, it's been really good.
So for her, is this her first year in
Yep.
Portugal? And then what is she hoping to do? Because it sounds like maybe she only has a 1 year contract with them.
Yep.
Maybe is she hoping to re-sign with them if possible, or does she want to look elsewhere? I know you said she wants to try and maybe do NWSL.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about like what her contract negotiations or the team that
Right.
she's on right now. That's her thing. I can
Yeah.
tell you that eventually, she'd like to play on a team that is in the Champions League, which the team that she's on right now could very well make the Champions League. Where we're close enough to Sporting, and we just beat them,
Mm-hmm.
so we're right there. And if she can make a team on the Champions League, then she's got a really great chance of coming back and playing in the NWSL. But does she have to play in a Champions League? I don't know. I don't. This is all new, uncharted waters.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of girls that play in the NWSL that she's played against. Um, it's just I don't know. I don't know yet. Like that's a talk to me next year. I'll tell you what happens.
To be continued. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm just, you know what? I'm really excited for her
Mm-hmm.
as a young woman. I mean, think about it. She's a 24-year-old living in Portugal, playing soccer for a living. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would have killed to play softball for a living. I would have
Mm-hmm.
killed. I would have been like, oh my God, I'm like, it's the best life ever, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's just, it's wonderful. She's worked really, really hard to get to where she is. It has not been without a lot of tears and a lot of anxiety because playing soccer at that level, there's a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Even in college, I would just give you the beep test, for example. Like, Jenna's a big girl. The beep test, psychologically, she has a hard time with it. And her
Mm-hmm.
sophomore year, the coach was making a statement: if you don't pass the beep test, you don't play. So she had played in Budapest that summer, came back from Budapest to preseason late. So she was already, it's a new coach. She comes in late. She can't pass the beep test. This new coach doesn't know how good she is. So Jenna doesn't play the first preseason game. The only reason why she was put in on the second preseason game we played against Rutgers, who were losing 2-0, because we didn't have a lot of subs, and a girl on the field broke her nose.
Oh,
So she put Jenna in, and Jenna played phenomenal. They didn't score another goal, and she relaxed the having to pass the B test.
yeah.
So she's like, then they brought in a cone test. They did whatever they could to get them to pass. So
Yeah.
it's I would get calls every day. I didn't pass again. You know?
Yeah.
It's a so there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of hard work, but there's also like just she loves playing so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's who she is almost at this point.
Yeah. And it definitely, just those little psychological things that players have to go through, and sometimes you're like, it doesn't even have anything to do with my playing ability.
Right. Right. I'm so fast on the field. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I definitely get that because that was one of the things that I always hated was,
Oh,
having to, one of my coaches, they made us like run a mile before practice even started. And I was like,
I think it's
this
terrible.
is, this is so, like, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And then, for every minute that somebody was late, then we had to run ladders. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, we're not of driving age. Like, now that I'm a coach and I think
Yeah.
about this, I'm like, punish the parent for being late.
Right.
You don't know what the circumstances are. Like, don't punish. Like, I don't
Well,
know.
now you know.
Yeah, as a coach and thing, like, I'm like, if it's a consistent thing, maybe we need to talk to them. Like, is there something that's happening every time? Is it just they have to go drop another kid off at another activity? Like, could be so many things going on. And really, like, until they're of driving age and if they have the ability to have their own car, like, it's
So,
really hard to hold accountable a kid being on time for practice or not
I
because
know. And the
usually it's
fact
not their
that,
fault. Like you said, your daughter, like, she's ready to go and you
oh,
guys are, slowly moseying
yeah,
on down
right.
and she's just
Oh,
like,
we
I
were
need to
getting
be.
yelled at.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so,
But I also think having you run that much before you're going to actually go and do another 2 hour practice is crazy.
yeah. It was different. And so because we had never done that before. It was a set of coaches that had, were newer, or not a set of coaches. It was a coach that, I'm trying to remember which one of them made us do that. But I was not like a long distance runner. Like, I hated it. I was a very fit
Right.
person. Like, I did dance for 4 or 5 hours a week. I did soccer for 6 hours a week and all these things. Like, I was a very physically fit person, but like, to this day, I hate running. I can run on the
Oh,
soccer field and not get out of breath, like, totally fine. My face might be beet red after the game, but I'm like, I'm totally fine. But I mean, to me, those are different types of running. Like,
there
just
absolutely. You're running
running.
for a purpose in soccer. When you're
Yeah.
out jogging, there's no purpose. There's
Yeah.
just not.
So I, I I don't know. And so, I mean, and that was in the 90s. So, I mean, again, it was, a lot of things that a lot of coaches don't do anymore.
No,
And
they
and
don't. Think
and
about
so,
body shaming. Think about how much body shaming happened when, like, I mean, you're 10 years younger than me, but I can tell you, even when I was younger and playing sports, there's so much body shaming going on. Like
mhm,
now, if you do that, like there is big focus on how a coach talks to a woman player. And
mhm.
I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's definitely a different culture, and for the good, for the most part, as far as like the advancement in different things, and definitely has gone in the right direction for those types of things. And so those players that have been able to pave the way for these younger players to make, those transition and things easier has been great. Or for coaches like me that are still newer on the scene, like, it's made it so much better because, like, thinking about different things, I would probably, thinking about the way it was back then, like, how much harder it must have been. Like, just, I don't know if I'd be able to do the same job, 20, 30 years ago.
No. Oh yeah. It's definitely I'm definitely thankful for the culture change that has
Hmm.
happened in women's sports and the focus that has been on women's sports, and it gets me all choked up because I so wanted, if you asked me when I was younger what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was the first woman in Major League Baseball. That was my dream,
Hmm.
right? So we didn't, that's all I could dream about because we didn't have women's sports. You couldn't get scholarships. I played softball. We there weren't scholarships. It just didn't happen back
Hmm.
in the 80s. And to see, what my daughter has accomplished, she got a full ride all 5 years to college and playing now professional. It's just amazing to me. It's very emotional because you think I'm one of those parents, oh, I'm living vicariously through my kid, but what it's more about how I felt playing sports and how I would have felt being in that world, and she gets to do it.
Hmm.
Like I'm so happy for her. I'm so excited for her. Just a little bit jealous, not a lot, maybe 90% jealous. No.
Yeah.
um, but she gets to do that. Like, how cool is that? That I have a daughter who plays a professional sport,
Yeah.
or a professional athlete that never, you know, when I was younger, that never would have even been an option.
And
So I love it.
the opportunities have grown a lot recently. And so, there used to only be so much opportunity for these women to be able to even play professional
Right.
soccer. And so the fact that there are now so many professional leagues in other countries and being able to have those opportunities is amazing,
Yeah. They're
because
starting
they
another league here, right? We got the USL starting next year. Um, you can see my sweatshirt, right?
it says
Awesome.
support women's sports. The data does.
Yep. um, because it does, right? People are watching. I mean, look at the NCAA women's basketball tournament. I don't know about you, but like I'm usually in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm tired. I could not like close my eyes watching these games. It was so much fun. There's so much passion in these women. They are so good at their craft. It's just a joy to watch. So I hope it just continues to grow, and we have more and more opportunities for our daughters and granddaughters.
it's it's definitely fun to watch and fun to see. I know I've even had people, just as a female coach, saying because they need more female coaches, they were like, if you really want to try and do it past coaching 10-year-olds, they're like, get licensed and see what you can do, that type of a thing. And so that's something that I've been thinking about. I don't know if it's something I would do, but I've
Awesome.
definitely thought about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I've never really thought about that aspect. And my husband's been coaching for so long, and I've learned a lot from him, and so it's definitely something that I've thought about. And I'm like, I don't know, like, would that be something that I'd want to do? Like,
Yeah, we
that's
need that, right? We need for our daughters and granddaughters to have people to look at. Like, hey, there were no women in Major League Baseball. There are now, but there weren't back then. And I had no one to look at. I think about on-field reporters. There were no women on-field reporters. I'll tell you what, if I was living in this day and age, other than being a professional athlete, I would have been an on-field reporter. But there was nobody to see that was doing that. I didn't think that was an option. If you do that, you become a coach for that next level and that next level. Like, you got little girls looking at you going, I can do that. I can be her. And I think
yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's great to see some of the women coaches that have stepped up into like the NWSL coaching. I'm here in Utah with the Royals, and so our head coach is a female.
So you've got Allie. Allie Sentnor played again. Well, she's from my area. So
Okay.
she played for South Shore Select, which is one of the other soccer clubs. But her and my daughter played together on a Christmas team, and it was pretty fun. They also played against each other in high school.
Oh,
Even
fun.
though Allie's so much younger, but so the high school that she went to, they started their school in seventh grade. So she was
Oh,
obviously playing on varsity as a seventh grader and
yeah.
starting. So, but yeah, so you got the Utah Royals out there. You got some good players going on up there.
Yeah, we do. So it's nice to have them back. So for those of you that don't know the history of our team, they were here in Utah, and then the RSL team and the Royals got split up and sold to a new ownership, and they didn't keep the Royals. They left for a few years, and now they're back. So this is
Yay.
I don't, their homecoming year is what they're calling it, because it's not
Okay.
necessarily their inaugural season because they've been here before, same name and everything. So it's their homecoming year is kind of what they're calling it. So, and it's
That's
fun
what
to
we're
see.
waiting for. We're waiting for Boston to come back. So the Breakers left, and now we're supposed to be getting another team next year. So keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But I love watching soccer. And I especially love watching soccer now because there are so many girls that I've watched from the time they were little playing against, my daughter and with my daughter, and now being on this big stage. Like, it's fun. It's fun to watch these girls, right? It's fun to watch them compete. I can't wait till we get something in Boston.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. Like we have some homegrown players. Brecca Mazingo, that's on the
She's
Royals.
awesome. I watched her
She
at BYU. She's awesome.
Yeah, so she played at BYU. She actually played for the club that I coached for, that I played for as a kid, that she, until the age split, her last 2 years were with a different club, because, like your daughter's team, they
Yeah.
split up because of the who
Yep.
was what age and whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think
she's,
they're the same year.
yeah, the 9900 or '01,
Yeah,
around that.
99, 2000.
Yeah, so we have some homegrown players, people that are from Utah, and so it's really fun to be able to see, like you said, people that you know. I know, like when we watch men's soccer, because my husband has always coached boys, he'll randomly be like, "Hey, we we played whatever team he coached." He's like, "That kid was on that team that we played that one time," and
Yeah.
he has like this whole storage unit of information in his brain. But he can go, "Hey, that kid was on that team that we played at this tournament this one time," and I'm just like,
Okay.
cool, like that's
That's
awesome,
great.
like that you remember that he was there. He remembers everything. But yeah, so it's kind of like that, where you go, oh man, that's so cool that this
Hmm.
player that I know, that is signed with a pro contract, they're playing against this player that we played at, whatever. And so it's cool to see, like, especially now that kids that we've known are starting to play
Yeah,
collegiately and professionally and things like that, that we're able to see that as well. And yeah, it's fun to see the kids, grow up and have those opportunities that used to not be there. Especially
I
like
know.
for us in our backyard, having two professional soccer teams. We have some USL teams, or
Yeah, USL is coming out.
yeah, so we have a few in our area and things like that. So a lot of the college players that play locally, not all of them, but they'll come in the off season, in the summer, spring, and they'll come play for these local teams, and then they'll go back to their colleges and play. And so that's fun to see them do that. And then the opportunities that RSL and the Royals have in our area has been fun to see.
That's awesome. I just love it. I wish, like I said, I can't wait till we get a team. I just can't wait. I'll just keep saying it. Please, Boston, hurry up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was in San Diego, over Thanksgiving, because we were at the Surf Cup and we were at the Del Mar Polo Grounds, former Polo Grounds. They're not Polo Grounds anymore, but it was really cool to see, because they had like all the San Diego Wave stuff there,
Yep.
because that's where they train. And I was just
Yes.
like, I didn't realize that. And my husband was like, because I hadn't been there for a couple of years, and he was like, yeah, this is their training facility. You didn't know that? And I was like, no.
No, but I do now.
So, it's fun to be able to see that and go, that's really cool, because this is where Alex Morgan trains and plays, and
Yep.
things like that. So I'm like, it's fun to see that kind of stuff.
I
So
know it is. I don't, you know, you would think my husband would be like rah rah women's sports, considering he has a daughter who's a professional athlete, but he's still like this old school. And I'm not kidding you. He's like, not a lot of guys are gonna watch women's sports. I'm like, oh really? Okay. I every time there's like a new record that's broken, I'm like, oh, did you see how many people? Did you see 12.3 million people watch the Iowa LSU game? Did you happen to see that? Did you
hmm
see that, this game got more viewership than the Red Sox did or than the Celtics did? I just, I love just, oh, by the way, women's sports did this. So
right, right.
just, again, I'm coming from people in my generation. There weren't a lot of women who played sports.
hmm
They just weren't.
Yeah,
Um, and to see the evolution and everything that women who were trailblazers have done for us to be able to have these platforms, it's amazing. I'm
yeah.
in awe.
Yeah, it's
So
it's definitely great. So to wrap up really quick, I have one more
yes,
question for you, and I
sure.
don't know if you'll have the answer for this, because I don't know if this discussion has been had yet. But I know that your daughter is starting her professional career right now. But does she know what she wants to do after?
I honestly, I don't know. I think that she's talked to a few people. She graduated with a sport management major, with a minor in data analytics
Mm-hmm.
and marketing. So something along the lines of she loves data, she likes being behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
That's more her. I know that she used to work for Zoom, who this is one who does this sweatshirt. They do a lot of data analytics for sports. She worked for the post game, and I know she's talked to some people in NWSL, and hopefully, she might do something with them eventually down the road. I think she wants to stay in women's sports, which is
Mm-hmm.
great, right? Whatever that capacity is.
Mm-hmm.
I think she will. She's really good at whatever she does. So, um, whatever the road, wherever the road takes her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and definitely support her in her journey, and that's so awesome for her. So which specific team does she play for right now?
She plays for Racing Power.
Okay.
Like I said, they play in the Liga BPI.
Mm-hmm.
We tied Benfica. We beat Sporting. So we've got a really, really good team. They have a striker on her team who she met when they were at a Houston Dash camp. Um, so they've got some really good chemistry because they knew each other going into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some. This team's really good. It's really, really good when everyone's healthy. So it's been fun. Like, who would have thought they're a brand new team to Division One? They were in the second division last year, and they played
Got
in to be able
promoted.
to. Yeah, so they never thought that they'd be in the position that they're in. This coach did some really great recruiting, some really got some really great players, and we've done really well. They've actually so Jenna missed the first 3 games of the year. She had a torn quad.
Mm-hmm.
um, Came back, and in league play for all of the games they've played, I think they've played 13 games. She's they've conceded 2 goals and they've lost 1 game.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, so yeah, they've done really, really well. It's been fun to watch. Um, right now, they're playing a little bit more of a direct style of soccer
Mm-hmm.
due to the injuries, but they're they've got some really great talented players on this
Mm-hmm.
team. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been fun to watch. You can watch it on YouTube.
I
They
was
have the
gonna
games.
ask. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
how do you get to watch not being there?
So yeah, they most of the games in the league. So there's the Portugal Cup that they're still in. So they're playing in the semifinals of the Portugal Cup right now against Braga. If they win this last leg, they won the first leg 2-1, which Jenna scored in. I was super excited. She scored the tying goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if they win against Braga, then they'll play the winner of Benfica and Sporting for that Portugal Cups. But the league games are typically streamed on YouTube. So if
Mm-hmm.
you go to YouTube to Canal 11, they have almost all the Liga BPI games.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
So we'll definitely have to check that out, and I'll put a link in the show notes so that if anybody, I could try and find the link for it. So if they have their own channel, obviously I can find it, and then you guys can find that in the show notes if you guys are interested in watching that.
It's some great soccer, and if you're watching like any of the games up to the Olympics, Olivia Smith, who plays for the Canadian national team, plays for Sporting in the league. We've
Mm-hmm.
got some players that Brittany Rapino is one of the strikers for Sporting. She's from our area too, and there's some really great players, Portugal and beyond. We've got some Irish players, some Swedish players. Like you'll get, I believe it. It's a great league. I wish more people kind of took a hold of this league, and watch more because there's some really great. Even Benfica, I mean, to watch Kika Nazareth and Lucia Alves, they're amazing. They just, it's great soccer.
Yeah, and that's awesome that she gets to be a part of that and experience it. And
Yeah,
hopefully, she gets to continue playing professionally wherever that may be,
yeah,
whether it's with the same team or a different team. Good luck to her in those
thank you.
opportunities. She's getting to do what she loves.
Yeah, yeah, I'm super excited for her. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, and good luck to Jenna, and
Thank
just
you.
keep us updated, and we'll definitely, if she has a social media profile, let me know, and I can link that as well for anybody that's interested in looking more into what she's up to and what she's doing and accomplished and things like that. Love to support those women's sports as well. So thank you so much for coming on,
Awesome.
Terry.
Thank you. I hope you have a fabulous day.
Thank you. You too.
I hope you all enjoyed the interview with Teri Tivnin. A little update on Jenna. She is still currently in Portugal playing for a team called Terines. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And her team last year, Racing Power, placed third in their division and also competed for the Portugal Cup, which is awesome. So, congrats to Jenna, and maybe we'll have her on the podcast soon to share her experiences. All right, guys, thanks for kicking it with me and have a great day.
Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at kickitwithkatie podcast _ between all the words. You can reach out to me with questions at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com. I also have a feature with SpeakPipe where you can leave me your own voicemail message if you want to be featured on the podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.